right, let's gather around. So someone once asked me, do you have any stories that are both spiritual and terrifying? And let me tell you, I sure do. This one? It's absolutely true, every word of it. And it's not a modern-day tale either. This happened back in 1979, during the fiercest days of the war in Cambodia. I actually heard it myself, just chilling with some of the older guys over coffee. And one of them had actually served in that very war. So picture this, Pol Pot's Khmer, Rouge. They were committing genocide, butchering their own people in Cambodia. That's when the Vietnamese army moved in to help the Cambodian folks fight back and drive out the Khmer Rouge. Everyone in Cambodia, and really anyone who knows their history, knows about that whole nightmare. Now, the uncle I heard this from, his unit had secured a spot. They were in a pretty safe, occupied zone, camped out right by a river in a village. Not a big, sprawling river, just a bunch of smaller channels, only wide enough for little boats to pass through. The Cambodian villagers, they genuinely loved and respected the Vietnamese soldiers. They'd often come by, bringing all sorts of goodies, dried food, fresh fish, even cooking full meals for the troops. But our soldiers, they had their marching orders. They were under strict command not to cause any trouble or misunderstandings with the locals. It was all about earning trust and building the Vietnamese army's reputation while they fought Pol Pot's genocidal regime. Because of this, the higher-ups, the commanders, were really concerned about any potential squabbles or even just loud arguments with the villagers. See, in wartime, the local people are your foundation. If they're with you, you can overcome anything. So the Vietnamese soldiers, they absolutely never dared to get involved in relationships, steal, or do anything personal that might mess with military discipline. They were, by all accounts, really friendly and harmonious with everyone. But sometimes, even with all that friendliness, that genuine affection for the villagers, a little bit of playful teasing could slip out. Some of the guys, they'd joke around with the local people. And there was this one old Cambodian woman. She was a regular presence. She would often come by, bringing fish porridge. You gotta understand, life back then was incredibly hard. Nothing like our modern conveniences. So fish porridge didn't mean fancy salmon or anything. It was just whatever wild fish she could catch. The way my uncle described it, you could almost set your watch by her. Every day after 6 p.m., just as the gentle moonlight started to show, you'd see her figure. She'd be rowing her boat with this massive pot of porridge aboard. And she was an expert rower. No matter how she paddled, she never spilled a drop. Every single evening, she'd paddle right up to where the unit was stationed, and the soldiers would come out. She'd ladle out the porridge for them, and they'd always give her little dry rations in return, just small gifts to show their appreciation. Now, there was this one particular soldier. He understood Cambodian, and he said something to her. When he came back to the unit, and they asked him what he'd said, he just blurted it out. I asked her why she kept cooking this same old thing. Why no meat? This stuff is so boring, I'm sick of it. My uncle, the storyteller, was aghast. He immediately told the guy off, saying, "Why would you say something so insulting to her?" And sure enough, later on, when the soldiers were saying their goodbyes to her, her face was just plain mad. After that, for about a whole week, she didn't come back to the unit. The storytelling uncle and his squad, they were pretty sad about it, and they definitely blamed that rude soldier. Why'd you have to open your big mouth and make her angry so she wouldn't come back? But then, exactly 1 week later, she rode back to their spot. Man, everyone was overjoyed to see her. Like I said, life was tough for soldiers in wartime. They weren't always eating well, often just dry rations or whatever they could grow. So seeing her boat pull up was like a huge relief, a real improvement to their daily meal. And this time, the porridge, it was sumptuous. When they peered into her pot, it wasn't just fish. There were bones, cartilage, and even brain, plus a ton of meat and all sorts of liver, heart, everything. Everyone agreed it was the most delicious meal they'd ever tasted. My uncle, who this story swore he'd never had meat that good, soldier who had complained before, he actually stood up and apologized to her. He told her he was sorry for his harsh words. And in that moment, the way she looked at him, her eyes welled up with tears. But it wasn't emotion. My uncle said it was pure fury. She just stared at the man who had insulted her, and then, after everyone had eaten, she just rode away. And for the entire next week, this small squad, only about a dozen or so guys, kept getting that incredibly delicious meat porridge every single evening. Not the whole unit, just a small group. Then, about another week later, they got orders from command. They had to move further up into an even hotter combat zone. On their way, they'd pass right by the old woman's house. The locals knew where she lived, so some of the soldiers, being soldiers, knowing life could vanish in a flash, wanted to stop and say a final goodbye. But when they passed her place, it just felt gloomy, as if no one had lived there in ages. Seeing how strange the situation was, a few of the soldiers from my uncle's squad, the ones who spoke a little Cambodian, went around asking the villagers nearby, partially to inquire about the old woman, and partially hoping to scrounge up some dried fish or meat to supplement their rations. And that's when the villagers dropped an absolute bombshell. They told them, "That old woman who sold you porridge? About a week ago, she went to the Pol Pot genocide zone. She was picking things up over there, and she stepped on a landmine. She was blown to smithereens, died right there on the spot." The entire squad was gripped by sheer panic and terror. They pressed for more details because this woman had been a lifesaver, improving their dismal wartime meals, almost like family. So they asked, "But what about those meals she gave us? The ones with the offal, the bones, all that meat?" The Cambodian villagers, their eyes went wide as saucers, staring at my uncle and his squad. They cried out, "Oh my God!" She was collecting human flesh from the genocide site. She cooked it for you to eat. They explained. Every evening she went over there, she'd collect human flesh. She'd dig out livers and hearts and bring them back to cook for you. You think it was simple? In wartime, where on earth would you get pork, chicken, beef, or duck with offal like that? Didn't you notice how strange those bones and that meat were when you ate it? Right then and there, the entire Vietnamese squad started vomiting everywhere, completely disgusted. But it still wasn't over. The villagers had one more chilling detail to reveal. They said, "Remember, you guys ate that meat porridge for over a week, but we knew she died 5 or 6 days ago, and she had only collected bodies to cook porridge for the first 2 days before she was blown up. So the terrifying question hung in the air. Who was bringing that porridge on all the remaining days? Was it not her at all? Or was it her vengeful spirit coming back to get even for that simple, thoughtless joke from the soldier? This is the story that soldier from that squad shared with Uncle Three. Even now, whenever we meet, he still asks me, "Son, do you believe I really ate human flesh during the war?" For a long time, I just thought he was kidding. But this story, it's been stuck in Uncle Three's mind for a very, very long time. Life was brutally hard during the war, and there were so many unbelievable, strange ghost stories. But they truly happened. Next time, if you want to hear more creepy war stories, just leave a comment and remind me. Until our 10th night.